Do you ever sit and wonder, how did we get here? Like, how did Kenya become a place where you work hard, you do everything right, but somehow you're still stuck? The rich are still rich, the poor are still poor. And every time we think that something is about to change, with new leaders, new promises, things just seem to stay the same. I've had people say that, it's corruption, it's bad leadership. But lately, I've been asking a question that I think most of us have been avoiding. Where did all this start? Like, was it always this way? Because this cannot be bad luck. How unlucky would we have to be? I mean, there has to be a reason why every generation in this country feels like they're starting from zero. Like the game was rigged before we even got a chance to play. And the deeper I went, I came to realize that the problem did not start with us. The problem did not start with Ruto or Uhuru. The problem goes way back. During colonial times, a system was built, designed for only a few people to win. And when independence came, the system did not go away. It just changed faces. And that right there might be the reason why Kenya feels the way it feels today. So let's take a look at how we got here. See, before colonization, Kenya wasn't this wild, disorganized place that the British pretend that it was. Our society had structure, they had system, and most importantly, they had balance. For example, land wasn't something that you owned like a title did. Land was for the community. Like with the Kikuyu, land was passed through families, but the real ownership lay with the clan, what is called bare. You couldn't sell it off the way people do today. Your responsibility was to care for it, farm it, and leave it for the next generation. Among the Luo, land also followed a similar rhythm. The land wasn't just soil. It was where your ancestors rested. Like, you could never really own it in the Western sense. You were part of it and the land was part of you. And decisions, they were not made by some rich guys sitting far away. Decisions were made by councils, elders who represented the community, not just their own interests. The Kikuyu had Kiama, a council that balanced the needs of the group. The Kamba had their own system called Atumia Aidhembo. Women who actually played roles in dispute resolution. And these are just a few examples. This was everywhere in every community in Kenya. Sure, we had our problems, but the playing field was not tilted the way it is today. Power wasn't locked behind politics and money. People survived because their communities survived. But when the British came, that whole reality flipped. At first, it wasn't even an invasion. It was a slow, quiet shift. Treaties, missionaries, a railway cutting through communities. Then came the laws. Laws written in a language that our people could not understand. Slowly turning public land into crown land, which meant that now the Queen owned it. Can you just take a moment and imagine waking up and finding out that the soil under your feet was not yours anymore? And sadly, that was just the beginning. Entire families, entire communities were displaced. People who had lived on that land for generations were now called squatters. And the thing is, they did not just take any land. They took the best parts, the most fertile lands. Land that could feed communities for years turned into private farms and ranches for white settlers. They call these areas the White Islands. Over 7 million acres of Kenya's most valuable land was snatched and locked away. And the people who used to own this land, now they only had two options. Either leave the land or work for the white settlers who stole it. Can you imagine? Suddenly, the same land that was giving life to these families was feeding the British Empire instead. And for the first time, people were forced into wage labor, forced to pay taxes in cash, not in livestock or produce, cash. Cash that they could only earn by working for the same white settlers who pushed them off the land. And if you did not pay, your livestock was seized, your home was raided, and your family was punished. The system was not built to lift Kenyans up. It was built to break them and control them. And over time, something really sad started to happen. The way people saw themselves began to change. Communities started to break apart. Individual survival replaced community survival. And slowly, a gap opened up. A gap between the people who found a way to profit from this new system and the many who were left struggling at the bottom. And even after independence, the gap never closed. So here's the part that really messed me up when I was trying to put all this together. When Kenya finally got its independence in 1963, you'd think that, okay, the people who were pushed off of their land, finally, this is their moment. This is when things would go back to as they were. The white man had gone, the stolen land would be returned to families, and the system would be fixed. And honestly, people believed it because at the time, Jomo Kenyatta stood in front of the nation and promised them exactly that. In his very famous words, he said, "We're not fighting for land for a few people. We're fighting for land for all people." The land that was taken by colonialists would be returned to its rightful owners. Beautiful words. That was the hope. That was the dream. But that did not happen. What actually happened was a handshake, a quiet deal between the new African political elite and the British Empire. The British left, but they did not undo the system they built. They didn't return the land, they just handed over the keys. The laws, the taxes, the power structures, they all stayed the same. As I like to say it, the faces changed, but the game did not. And the new Kenyan elite, the ones who were educated in British schools, dressed in British suits, spoke the British language, they inherited the system exactly as it was. They did not tear it down because by then, they were sitting on top of it. And here's where it gets even more real. There was a land buyback program that was meant to resettle Kenyans who had been displaced. But the thing is, the money, the land, the process, it was not made for ordinary people. It was built for those with connections, those who were very close to power. Families that had struggled for generations watched politicians, chiefs, and the politically connected scoop up the best land all over again. In fact, some of the largest landowners today trace their holdings back to that handover. Independence did not really return the land. It just redistributed it, but sideways. And the message was clear. If you wanted to survive, or better yet, if you wanted to succeed, you needed proximity to power. You need to know someone, you need to play the game. And from there, the system just kept feeding and feeding itself. Government contracts, public land allocation, licenses, tenders, all going to the same circles. A network built to protect itself. And the rest of the country, they were left in the same position as before, on the outside, looking in. When you look at Kenya today, the inequality, the corruption, the land issues, it all feels so familiar. That's because it's not new. It's the same machine running under a different name. In fact, decades later, we still don't even know who owns what in this entire country. Kenya's land registry is one of the most chaotic and corrupt systems we have. Documents go missing, boundaries get erased, title deeds get faked. Generations of families are still stuck fighting for land their grandparents owned in the colonial era. And when it comes to power, the old colonial structure where a small elite sits at the top and the majority are locked out still holds. And the saddest part about this is that most of us have grown thinking that this is just how Kenya is. That it's normal for a country to have this much wealth in the hands of the few and the rest of us just fight for the scraps. But when you trace the story, like really, really trace it, like what we've done here, you realize that it wasn't always like this. It was built piece by piece, law by law, and generation by generation. And I guess the real question is, if the system was built, can it be unbuilt? Because the truth is, we did not get here by accident. Someone designed this, someone benefited, and unless we understand this, we're going to be stuck in the same loop, watching the same problems, the same frustrations, the same headlines, just wearing different names. So yeah, I don't really have answers. I'm just figuring it out just like you. But I've realized this. The way Kenya looks today, the corruption, the inequality, the struggle, it didn't just happen. It was designed. And until we start asking the right questions about how we got here, we're never really going to change where we're going. It's not about the politicians. It's not about the headlines. It's about the system. And once you see the system, you can't unsee it.